For years now, folks, we've been fed this shiny, polished-up fairy tale about how my half-sister Meghan waltzed into royal life like some kind of scripted rom-com.
Archie was allegedly born, that he said that she had picked up her frozen eggs. So I thought, well, it kind of makes sense, all things taken together, that there would be a surrogate involved.
King Charles didn't just meet Archie and Lilibet. After 4 years of silence, he walked straight into a moment that had been predicted, mapped, and quietly warned about long before Windsor Castle ever opened its doors again. No contact, no photographs, no William, and a promise of silence from Prince Harry. Those weren't just conditions. They were signals. The world rushed to call it healing, a breakthrough, a royal thaw. But buried under that celebration was a name the media had trained everyone to ignore: Samantha Markle, and the uncomfortable reality that she had already described this exact reunion: the children, the access, and the leverage years in advance. Windsor Castle, May 2018, becomes the first clue when you stop looking at it as a wedding and start reading it as construction. Doria Ragland walks alone, dressed in mint green, calm, composed, untouched by the chaos exploding around Thomas Markle. No husband beside her, no extended family presence, just a single, controlled image broadcast to billions. That wasn't absence, it was design. Because while Thomas Markle spiraled through staged paparazzi photos, missed flights, and interviews that kept changing tone, Doria said nothing. And that silence didn't weaken the narrative, it strengthened it into something almost untouchable. That contrast locked in instantly. On one side,
I would just say that there is so much water under the bridge and so much has spun out of control that was never intended to. And, I think everybody was hurt.
Public disorder. On the other, quiet dignity. And that balance wasn't accidental, it was strategic. From that moment forward, Doria Ragland wasn't just Meghan Markle's mother. She became a structural shield inside the Sussex brand. Criticize Meghan, and you were no longer just questioning a public figure, you were questioning the woman who raised her. That protection rewrote the rules. It made scrutiny feel like cruelty. And it worked flawlessly, for years. But what makes a perfect narrative dangerous is not what it shows, it's what it hides. Because through every public appearance, every interview, every partnership, one detail stayed perfectly controlled. Doria never appeared unscripted. Not one uncontrolled quote, not one accidental moment. Everything filtered, everything approved. The public wasn't seeing a person, they were seeing a version. Warm, simple, devoted, a carefully built origin story that felt too human to question. And that's exactly why no one did. Except one person had lived inside that story before it was edited. Samantha Markle didn't observe from the outside, she measured it against years, timelines, absences, and details that didn't match. And she didn't speak once or twice, she kept repeating the same claims. The same contradictions, the same gaps. That level of consistency wasn't emotional, it was structural. But the media made a decision early. They didn't engage the details. They reframed the messenger. The label was immediate. Bitter half-sister, irrelevant, attention-seeking. And once that frame locked in, nothing she said needed to be examined. The message disappeared under the character attack. But what got buried wasn't vague resentment, it was specific. Samantha pointed to timelines. She named years. She described absences. She identified contradictions between what was being sold globally and what had actually happened inside the Markle household. And the most uncomfortable detail kept resurfacing: Thomas Markle. Not as a side character, but as the primary parent from age 12 to 18. He paid for Immaculate Heart of Mary. He drove Meghan to auditions. He funded the early career the world later credited entirely to ambition. Meanwhile, Doria's presence during those same years, according to Samantha, was intermittent, far from the consistent, ever-present figure presented in 2018. That wasn't an attack, it was a structural inconsistency in the origin story itself. And consistency became Samantha's strongest weapon. Over years, she never changed the core points. No escalation, no exaggeration, no retreat. Just repetition of the same gaps. And that's where the story begins to shift, because resentment fades, but structure doesn't. If the narrative was airtight, those contradictions should have disappeared. They didn't. They stayed, waiting for something to expose them. That exposure didn't come through interviews or headlines. It came through paperwork. In 2022, while the public still saw Doria Ragland as a quiet yoga teacher and social worker, she quietly took on 3 corporate roles: CEO, CFO, and secretary of a Delaware registered company connected to Meghan Markle. No announcement, no press release, no coverage. 3 executive positions in one move inside a legal structure known for privacy, control, and strategic financial design. That wasn't symbolic. That was operational. Delaware incorporation isn't casual, it's deliberate. It's where people go when they know exactly what they're building. And the person placed at the center of that structure wasn't presented as a corporate operator. She was still the warm, quiet maternal figure. The distance between those 2 identities wasn't small. It was massive. And it demanded explanation. At the exact same time, the public was shown something entirely different. Doria receiving the very first jar of strawberry jam from Meghan's As Ever brand. A soft, emotional gesture. A symbol of love. The first recipient, before celebrities, before influencers. That moment told one story. The Delaware filing told another. And the gap between them wasn't accidental, it was the same type of gap Samantha had been pointing at for years. Because behind the scenes, something else was collapsing. The Sussex commercial empire, the one meant to prove independence from royal structures, began to crack. The $20 million Spotify deal ended after a single season. Publicly, it was creative differences. Structurally, it looked like failure. Netflix canceled Pearl before it aired. Deals announced with confidence didn't survive execution. The narrative of unstoppable commercial success started breaking under scrutiny. And inside the Montecito mansion, pressure replaced momentum. This wasn't just about business, it was about sustainability. Because when the income doesn't match the structure, something has to absorb the impact. And that's when Doria moved in full time. Not temporarily, not symbolically. Fully, according to those close to the household, her role wasn't emotional, it was operational. She became part of the daily functioning of a system trying to hold itself together. And here's where the story tightens. Prince Harry found her stabilizing. That detail matters more than it seems, because it reveals dependence. It reveals trust. And it reveals that the person he relied on most may have been positioned in ways he didn't fully understand. Because while he experienced warmth and support, the legal and financial structures around him were being built in parallel, quietly, precisely, and without public visibility. For 18 months, Doria remained inside that system, almost invisible publicly. No interviews, no appearances, no noise, just presence. Until that presence shifted. The atmosphere inside changed. What had been stabilizing became strained. And the fracture didn't come from media pressure or royal tension, it came from inside the household itself. And that's where everything Samantha Markle had been saying starts to move from theory to pattern. Because when the person positioned as the emotional core begins to disconnect, the entire structure built around that image starts to wobble. And the question isn't just what happened inside that house, it's who understood it first. Because if Samantha wasn't guessing, then she wasn't reacting. She was watching something unfold in real time that the rest of the world was only just beginning to see. The silence didn't break. When Doria Ragland walked out of the Montecito mansion, it deepened. And that silence is where the real shift begins. Because 6 months later, in December 2025, when a broadcaster on GB News made a false claim about Doria live on air, the response from the Sussex operation was immediate, aggressive, and overwhelming. 805 Ofcom complaints filed. A public apology forced. National coverage triggered. That speed wasn't emotional, it was strategic. It showed exactly what the machine does when it decides something matters. And that makes what happened before impossible to ignore. Because when Doria left, there was no statement, no defense, no correction, no narrative. The same system that mobilized instantly to protect her image chose absolute silence when she physically removed herself from the household. That's not inconsistency, that's prioritization. Because what the machine protects is not events, it protects the image. The devoted, untouchable mother had to remain intact publicly, even if the reality behind that image had already shifted. Explaining her departure would have forced details into the open that the structure wasn't built to absorb. So the silence wasn't weakness, it was containment. And once you understand that, every public signal that followed starts to read differently. Mother's Day 2025 becomes one of those signals. Meghan Markle, on one of the most controlled and strategically managed social media platforms in the world, posts two $64 scented candles from her As Ever brand, one for Archie, one for Lilibet. The message is clear: motherhood, legacy, continuity, but the absence is louder than the post itself. No mention of Doria. No image. No acknowledgement. On the one day designed to highlight maternal bonds, the woman who had been positioned as the emotional foundation of Meghan's entire story is missing. That's not an oversight, that's a shift. Then comes Netflix with Love, Meghan, a show Meghan produced, controlled, and approved frame by frame. Nothing appears accidentally. Every word, every visual, every tone is deliberate. And in that controlled environment, Doria is described in just 2 words: free spirit. It sounds warm on the surface, but within the context of the show's language, structured, grounded, domestic. That phrase creates distance. It places Doria outside the system Meghan is presenting as her own identity. And by season 2, the shift becomes undeniable. Doria is simply gone. No explanation. No narrative bridge. Just absence. This is the pattern Samantha Markle had been describing for years: elevation, deployment, disappearance. Not emotional, not reactive, systematic. And now, for the first time, it's happening in public, in real time, in ways that can't be dismissed as speculation. The pattern isn't being argued anymore, it's playing out. And then the final piece: enters Tom Bower. Not a commentator, not a tabloid voice, but a career investigative journalist with 4 decades of dismantling controlled public images. Robert Maxwell, Richard Branson, Conrad Black. Figures protected by power, money, and legal teams. Bower doesn't speculate, he documents. When he turned his focus to Harry and Meghan, it wasn't curiosity, it was intent. He experienced Doria as grounding, stabilizing, consistent. He didn't see the Delaware filings. He didn't see the corporate positioning. He believed the origin story as it was presented, because it was presented the same way to him as it was to the world. And by the time the commercial deals started failing, Spotify ending, Netflix projects collapsing, those failures looked external. Market conditions. Creative differences. Not internal design. But pressure doesn't stay external forever. It moves inward. The marriage, described as under sustained strain, begins to absorb what the business structure couldn't hold. And when Doria, the stabilizing force, leaves, that pressure has nowhere else to go. What remains is a version of the life Harry built that no longer matches the one he thought he chose. And now every piece aligns. The Delaware filings, the disappearing presence, the controlled silence, the commercial collapse, the sudden reunion, the validation from Tom Bower. None of it stands alone anymore. It forms a structure. A pattern that had been visible for years, but only if you were willing to look past the framing. Samantha Markle wasn't ahead of the story. She was inside it, watching it build, identifying its gaps, naming its contradictions, while the world focused on her instead of what she was saying. And now the story hasn't ended, it's just reached the point where the next move matters more than everything that came before. Because if the reunion at Highgrove was calculated, then the question isn't what it fixed, it's what it unlocked.